the separate cream separator, the hen house, the wash house, the outhouse, all that was behind here.
So where was the house?
That was it.
This was the farmhouse. I see what you're saying.
And it was a screen porch. Was it that dormer?
In the middle of your shot.
That's okay.
It was an old boarding house.
And what was that? That wasn't there.
That wasn't even.
We made it.
Ooh,
And then there was nothing in the day of
across the way was
Here we
the
have
store,
Papa Ravn and Aunt Margaret
and then all the farm
and
buildings.
Nana
The barn.
and Aunt Kay.
Just park the car and turn it
And that
off.
was your property.
Yeah, that was all his property. And he had 40 acres back over here, all the way up to the...
Papa Willett did. So there were buildings all across here,
Oh, yeah.
and you kids had to run across the road. Was
Right.
that dangerous?
Not in those days, wasn't that much traffic, honey. It was a gravel road, you know.
Nobody was going too fast.
No way.
And what were there, like Model T Fords?
Yeah, right. Model T Fords, old chain-driven trucks, hard rubber tires, no pneumatic tires, all in logs from Newwood. They'd come over this bridge. See the word there, junction E?
Yeah.
The E is over there, see? That was a Kleinschmidt farm over across the river there.
So E goes up over here.
Yeah, it goes up over there and then towards the
Okay.
branch goes back this way, goes into the other. And they bring logs from over there and bring them down this way. I rode a log truck from the farm here across the way. Papa Willett put me on one of those log trucks, took me down to Merrill. My grandparents down there. Yeah.
Father Vince, why don't you come over and
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
now someone narrate for Trina where we're at.
Okay.
Stand in this too.
Well, even some of those trees there have grown up since we left here. Yeah. The barn was over that way.
Over where that little bridge.
Where's the well where I dropped the pail in and was afraid
About
to
where
tell
that road sign is right there.
me? You dropped a, what did you drop in, a pail?
We had
where was
long
the well?
pole
Where
with
that
a
road
hook,
sign is,
yeah,
right
and you
across
put the
the
pail on it, and you went down into the well, way down and bring it up.
Go out, yeah.
And I lost the pail.
Yeah. There was just a drop well down there. No pump on it or
And you know,
anything.
we know he
Drop the
knew
bucket
he
down
never
there and
asked
scoop it
about
up.
what happened to the pail.
So Father Vince, tell in front of the camera where things were, and Margaret and Kay too add on,
yeah.
and no one else talks. So
Well,
But don't you think it was this way a little further?
Which way, Mary?
Well, the buildings weren't on this slant.
It seems so.
oh yeah.
Across the street.
Sure, don't you remember it was the drive down to Papa's garage was always a slant down.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he had to back up the hill.
Can you see the mound, little mound over there? That's that rock that was next to the ice
I
house.
see it now.
Sure.
And I recognize, I know right where that is now.
Yeah.
Oh, next to
See now those two pine trees, I think they're pretty grown. They were small pine trees when we were here.
Yeah.
They're kind of big now. Okay, so the store was right across the way from here.
Yes.
And you used to walk up across the street, walk up the side of the farmhouse here to the back entrance to the kitchen.
Yep.
And the front door was, as I was telling, was a green screened-in porch. And the building, the whole farm building house was not as wide as this structure is now.
Well,
But it had a second story, somewhat that high.
There.
And we kids slept up there, and then we were able to look down.
it's the same size except this is added on.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think it was this wide.
Oh, yes,
Well,
it
that's
Sure.
has
Maybe, okay.
Because it had the living room and the big dining
I
room.
know, but even so, honey, those, I don't think they were that big. They were big to us then,
Yeah,
but
they're pretty good size.
it's been extended, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't
in
think
the
so.
front here, behind this screen porch, was the main living room, where was the main heater, furnace. And that provided any kind of warmth we were going to get upstairs through registers in the floor.
It's right around to the first one.
Yeah. And then off to the side here was a parlor we never ever used, except for company.
The parlor was where the door is.
Yeah.
Going in there.
More or less,
And
yeah.
the big dining room was that way.
That's right.
Yes.
Then behind the big dining room, there was a middle dining room, a middle area where we had our real meals. And then behind that was the kitchen yet.
Yeah.
Off to the left was this parlor, and behind the parlor was the grandparents' bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
right there. Then the kitchen.
In the little dining room.
Yeah, in the middle dining room. Then the kitchen. Off to the right of the kitchen back over here was a storage room. Down below the kitchen was a cellar, a fruit cellar, you know, where we stored potatoes and apples and cabbage and everything else. And then behind the kitchen was a woodshed where the wood was stored for burning in the kitchen stove, because that's all we had.
And the icebox was
And the icebox was back there.
And they got the ice from the river?
The ice was harvested from the river, stored over here in an ice house that was full of sawdust to preserve it through the summer, you know,
You forgot
and
our
hauled over here.
You forgot our playroom.
Well, yeah, there was that old storage room back there.
But behind, no, there was a
Off the kitchen there. That's
no, there was a room between the kitchen and the playroom. No trees, where you went outside.
oh, that was just a hallway.
Well, it was
And then the old playroom was back there full of junk.
yeah.
No reason. They cut them out because of the lumber.
Okay. Anyway,
They clear cut
in
it.
the outbuildings behind the farmhouse, the first building was a little stone creamery or milk house, where she brought the fresh milk from the barn over here. I followed him many times, carried the buckets of milk in there, and they put them in a separator, poured the milk, you know, over a gauze to strain it a little bit. And if you wanted a drink of hot milk, you just turned the spigot in there, and got fresh milk, warm from the cow. Yes. And then he put it in that separator, cranked the thing up, and let out a big whine and a whir like a siren. And off would come the cream would come off one spigot and the milk of the other. And then Mama would grab the cream and make butter out of it, or save some for cooking. And the milk, what did we do? How did we handle that?
You drank it?
We-
Oh, yeah. But there was some of it was stored in the milk house for
Yeah.
temporary storage,
Yeah.
but it was kept there. It was
we never
cool
sold
in
it though
there.
to a creamery that came by. We never had that many cows.
Years before they did, before our time.
Yeah. Behind the milk house was an old laundry room where Papa had a gasoline-powered washing machine, and we kids would wake up on a Monday morning to the sound of a put, 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 put. That means he was getting the laundry ready to get started.
You're the only ones around that had a washing machine that worked like that.
Yeah.
The rest of them just had a script board.
That's right. We even had a ringer.
Yeah. Got caught in the ringer all the time.
Okay. And then behind that yet was an outhouse, typical. You know, a three-holer for us. A
Big
family.
family.
Big family, yeah. and then on the other side of that was a hen house, chicken house.
And then the
That way?
smokehouse.
That sort of that way. Yeah.
There was a bathroom though in this house.
Oh, there was a
But it was
bed.
only used in the winter time. There were too many people to use it in the summertime.
Well, we
With what, a septic tank? Where did it
Yeah,
go?
it drained into a drain that went under the road down into the river.
Yeah.
There were so many of us kids, we were sitting
Yeah.
outside.
And what else did we have? Back out, this used to be a field. Those trees weren't there. That was a wide open field, a hay field.
Where the volleyball courts are?
I don't remember trees out there.
Oh no, that was a pasture. That's grown up since. I mean,
Over there, that was a pasture.
yeah, that's true too.
There were trees immediately
Grown up with
around.
these poplar trees.
Are you going to take us past the
So-
Algonquin?
So what was the order of the buildings then over here? What were the buildings?
Well,
Point
the first
for
was
the camera.
was the store, so-called store, and
Where?
right, well, just a little to the left of that signboard there.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did they sell at the store?
Booze. Beer, booze,
It was a
sardines, and tomato soup if you wanted something
It
to eat,
was never
and stale
called
crackers.
It was called a store, but it was a tavern. But
Did they
Mama
sell
never
provisions?
used the word tavern.
Not in our time.
This was out the country, but we went across the street. We did not go across the a road.
It was a street.
It's called the street.
See, they came up here and they're
So what was that building like? Describe that building. Was it
That
one
was-
story or
Yeah,
two story?
one story,
Unbelievable they
frame,
put
all
together
frame,
this and know
no
how to
brick
do
or
it.
anything else.
Where did they come from?
This
How did they know how to farm?
I don't know.
this end this end here was the tavern part, all the way to the back. The other west end was an old storage room. Mama had post office in there temporarily even.
That was a big room with all those beds in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was
right-
no
right
dormitory for
outside.
lumberjacks
Where the, yeah.
in those days.
How many beds
I
for the
don't know.
lumberjacks?
I don't know.
What was the
How many?
fee that the lumberjack had to pay?
I don't even know. I never heard that.
No.
I never
They
heard
didn't.
that.
The company
But behind
paid
the
it.
dormitory was another little room, another couple of rooms, private room sort of. And you said Papa used to take a bath back in there in one of those?
Well, there was a sink and everything
Yeah.
back there.
No, sink in there. Okay.
Sink.
Across the street.
And then there was a back entrance to the store. You could go right straight through it and down the stairs, and that would take you into that ice house where we stored the ice. He would harvest the ice in blocks, maybe 50-pound blocks, something like that, and load it up in layers, and then put the sawdust over it, and then another layer of ice, and he filled up that house in the wintertime, and that ice lasted all through the year, not only for his store to keep the beer cold and so on, but also for use over here.
I'm looking for somebody else.
And
When did the dams go in? That was
the dams were in before we ever came here.
Oh, really?
The grandfather and the grandmother's up this way.
okay.
Yeah. As you can see, a little mound behind there.
Yeah.
That was an outcropping of rock.
Yeah.
And we kids used to get, we'd pick wild strawberries off of there and played on it. We had a big rock out here in the field.
Yeah, where's that rock? That
We
couldn't
played
have-
out here
They couldn't have moved
in a
that.
wide open
That's
field.
all buried in snow now.
Yeah.
So it was.
But it was pretty
And then
high.
down, this is where Annie said, Kathleen, we would develop a slide. See the downward slope to this? We would develop a slide that would take us right down onto the river, onto the ice, you see. And that was great for our sleds,
How fun.
stuff like that.
We skate all winter out of the ice, shovel the rink out all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And they let you out on that ice.
And we had a rowboat, and there's a picture of me at home in the rowboat. Now I'm not
About
5
2
years.
or 3 years old.
Yeah, rowing out into the Wisconsin River.
By yourself?
Yeah, no, nothing. You know, no life preservers, no nothing.
Jeez.
Couldn't swim.
Okay. Then behind that ice house, that was the first outbuilding behind the store. Then coming this way would be Papa's garage. He used to get down there. He had an old Buick, and on a day like this, if he had to go to town, he'd get down there about 7 o'clock and start the Buick and go for about an hour just to warm it up.
And then he just roar up the back up and roar up the back.
I don't know how a car lasted that long. Anyway, next to that garage would be machinery shed. He had his hay developing, harvesting machinery. A rake, a kicker, a disc, and a plow, all those kinds of things in those sheds there.
For the fields back here.
Yeah,
that
for the
farm.
fields here and here.
Yeah.
Then off the end of those sheds was a pigsty.
Oh my gosh.
How many pigs?
Oh, only 2 or 3, not very many.
Just for eating?
Yeah, that's all just for his own use.
Right.
No, then that began a series of buildings that came back up toward the street. Here,
Yes, yes.
And in those buildings, he had again a tool shop.
Yeah.
He had a dressing area for the deer that they shot.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and they hang it up and dress it in there and prepare it. And he had then we had the big hay barn over in there
Yeah.
where we kids played around all kinds of, and the haying would be brought in by wagon and a team of horses, and they would park out there, and they had a what did they call that rake or that fork that came down from the
Yes.
and picked the hay up out of the wagon,
Yeah.
and then on a trolley carried it into the barn.
The horse will pull the.
What is
The horses would pull this trolley,
Yeah.
pulley system.
That's right.
And one of the, we kids would just hang around and try to be useful. We weren't. But we played around in it. And one hired hand would be up in the barn, spreading the hay around. Another one would be working down on the wagon. And that was the hay barn. Then this end of the hay barn was the stables for the horses. 2 or 3 horses. On the back side of the barn was the whole cow, the dairy end, where he had stanchions for, I imagine 5 or 6 cows in there. He only worked 2 or 3 at a time, but he had space for more.
Yeah, they had a lot of cows.
And of course he'd feed the horses, and the cows were all fed from the hay and grain that was stored in the barn. And then the offal, the manure and so on, went out the back of that cow shed, and it was kept in a pile, and then he used that. He had his manure kicker back there, and he'd bring it around and spread it on the fields.
And we'd ride in the carrier.
Oh yeah, even with all the smell and everything. That didn't bother you, it was fun. And we used to sneak cigarettes and all that kind of stuff back behind the barn, didn't we? Yeah.
Not Margaret. Moonshine? Not Margaret, just Kathleen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, Margaret was too good.
I was taking care of Hattie and Ann.
Yeah. And we'd hike around. Kay and I would hike up the mile, about a half a mile or so, up the highway here to another plot of timber.
Yeah.
And there was a tree up there. It was huge. It was called Mama's tree.
Yeah.
Big pine. And Kay and I would go up back into those woods and just explore.
Now, why'd you call it Mama's tree?
Because it was hers. It was big
Strong.
enough.
She was protecting that. She wouldn't let them cut
Yeah,
that
she-
tree.
that's right.
She kept it.
The tallest tree.
She kept them from cutting it.
Kay and I were back in there one day, and a great big horned owl came swooping down on us, scared us to death.
Oh. It was just screechy, wasn't
Yeah, oh yeah.
It was after you.
And then Papa would trap the same owl would come here and try to get one of our chickens. So Papa would set a trap with a dead chicken on it, you know. And he one time caught an owl back there by the talons.
Oh my
It was a
gosh.
great big thing. And he tried to save it, take it into town, I think, to conservation or somebody. But he didn't kill it. Big, beautiful beast. Yeah. Anyway, we had a silo as part of that barn, but Papa didn't prepare silage too much. We didn't grow that much corn. We had a little bit of corn. But
we used to get in there. We were not supposed to go in there, but we did.
You're naughty.
Very naughty
Silo
kids.
fillers would come and fill it.
And they did.
did that? I didn't remember that.
They did fill it.
Yeah,
A crew
okay.
would come with the machinery from farm to farm and fill the silo.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
We'd
Okay.
have to feed them all.
You remember that. Yeah,
We
Mama
had to
fed
feed
a
the
whole lot
people.
of
That's what we were
people
doing
in this
the farm.
farmhouse.
That's right.
All by yourself?
Yeah.
No, Mom always had a
gal.
Oh,
yeah.
she had Ruby, that's right.
Ruby.
Helping her in
Well,
the
she
kitchen.
had, what was her name? That was
Oh, Millie?
Millie.
Millie, she was thinking about.
Millie.
but that was,
That was before.
that was years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wasn't around in our time.
So at the height of the summers, when you stayed out here, how many kids were out here with Pop and Mom at the peak?
9.
8 or 9?
9 of us.
8 or
Yeah.
9?
There were 9 of us.
9?
Okay, all together.
See, Mara and
There were 5
Kathleen lived
Elsens
here the
alone.
year
Yeah.
round.
9,
Yeah.
yeah.
My family
5
would come
Elsens
from
and 2 Bart
Michigan
visited us.
Yeah.
and stay for a month.
Right.
When, and Mary Barr, you all knew her, her family would come. And poor Mama, she'd have...
And you'd stay here for the whole summer?
Well,
Oh, several weeks.
Till
Anyway.
after the fair.
Yeah.
yeah.
After the fair, they'd start going home.
And Father, why were all the buildings across the street and not over here?
Well, because they bought it as such. This was
So
owned
the
by...
street was always there.
Always there. This was the Posey place. Before it became the Willett place. They bought it from Posey.
And that's just the way it was.
That's the way it was.
So years ago, there probably wasn't a street separating it.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
That it was a problem.
And I don't know that Posey developed that store the way Papa Willett did. Papa Willett was an ex-sheriff, you know. He came out of town and bought up out here to do some farming. And he was the one, I think, who developed it into a tavern as such. But did Posey...
It was there before there was transportation.
I think we
It
have
was
to
there
get
from
them
the
in.
lumber camp.
Well, it served the lumberjacks, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be.
It was like a general store for the neighborhood.
Could be, okay. Posey, yeah, it could have been an all-purpose store at that time. Sure. Could well be.
Shall we sit in the car? And
Let's have them sit in the car.
Any animal, or you didn't need a license? You didn't need a deer hunting license? You saw a deer on your property, it was cool. That's cool.
That's right.
No license, nothing.
We'll get it. Someone
I
hold
have
the antler.
Playing
There.
Hi, Papa. You cold?
Hi, I was cold.
It's chilly today.
Yes.
himself. Strange old bachelor guy, weird.
On the other side of the river?
On the other side of the river. And
the Kleinschmidts,
every once in a while he'd come over and Pop would entertain him in the bar here. But he was always like curio. The kids would all gather around and looking at this crazy guy. But he survived.
Up where that house is now, he kind of lived?
Yeah, that house is new, of course.
Was that
he had a big barn.
Was there a house down there?
No
That's
houses down here at all. That all developed since.
What were you saying about the man hanging from the bridge?
He jumped from the bridge, and killed himself because he couldn't swim. He was drunk. And they fished him out and laid him over on the bank over there. And I remember that because as kids we were curious. We ran over there over to see this.
Where was the well that you were talking about earlier? Where Mom?
That roadside is right.
Oh, right there, that close to the road?
Yeah. Right off
Mom
the edge
dropped
of the
a bucket in there and was afraid to tell anyone.
Yeah.
So they must have covered that up or filled it in. Let's walk to the side here. Is there anything? Maybe you can just point out where.
Maybe
Yeah, that's what I wondered that too. I like that someone's.
See this growth of trees is all new to us. This is wide open. He grew Timothy out here to hay for his horses in the winter time.
So this is a pretty deep place. And the kitchen was back here, Father?
Yeah, the kitchen would be back in here.
So this is the original. You remember that extension, or is that new?
Well, that's newly covered, but the door to the storage pit would be right about there, where we went down into and stored the apples and potatoes for the winter. You know?
I bet in that barn there's probably old stuff from the farm.
It could be.
There's a lot of old stuff laying around. There's a lot of old stuff in there.
So can you, for the camera again, Father Vince, can you point out like the order of the buildings that were back here?
Back here, this part here would be the beginning of that woodshed that was behind the kitchen. And straight over from here would be the beginning of those outbuildings like the milk house and the laundry, the outhouse, and another storage building in the end. So that about here where this little shed is now, on this side of the walkway would be the beginning of the hen house. And back there where the barn is would be the back edge of the hen yard, the chicken yard, which was fenced in, see. Where we are now would be Mama Willett's vegetable garden, where she grew the stuff that was stored in the basement, you see. And I'm thinking, see that mound back there? Yeah. If that's a rock covered with snow, then that would be the big stone that we played on as kids, King of the Rock, King of the Mountain, all that kind of stuff. On that, it was about there. And one Christmas time, I guess it was the year I was living up here. Look at that plane. That would remind me of just exactly what I'm going to tell you. It was a very mild winter. We were out here playing, and all of a sudden an airplane went overhead. And the girls didn't see airplanes. They were taken with that airplane. And I was out here. I was a city kid by that time, and I was looking for woodchucks. That's what thrilled me was woodchucks, not airplanes. And they were thrilled by the airplane. Oh, yes.
How neat.
So what year would that have been?
That would be about 1931. 31. Remember that year?
Yeah.
That was a great year.
So you were coming in the summer because your school would be over,
Oh yeah,
and then you'd spend your summers here,
partly, just a few weeks.
and then you'd have to go back to school.
Oh yeah, we did that 2 or 3 summers. Then I came up here. When we moved, it was Depression, and Dad had lost his business and everything else. So the Willets took us in, Mom and we 3 younger kids, or us 3, and the 2 older boys lived with the other grandparents in town, the Elsen grandparents, until Grandpa Elsen died. And that made space then available for all of us. And we came in, Mother and we younger ones, and went in to live in town
Okay.
after Grandpa Elsen died. And Grandma Elsen lived only a couple more years in the old house on Prospect Street.
So that was their house.
Oh yes,
Oh, I see. So
that was their
then,
house.
not your mom and dad took over the Elsen house.
Correct.
Oh, I didn't. I thought that was their home originally.
No, no. Now that was, well, a godsend to us.
Yes.
And the
That was Mom and Pop's house?
That was during
no,
the
no,
Depression.
Elsen.
That was the
Grandpa,
Elsen house.
your Grandpa Elsen.
Huh.
Mom and Pop, when they lived in town, lived in a house behind the old Lincoln Hotel, down there, across from the Cosmo Theater almost, back in that little corner back in there.
Trophy bar is
Yeah,
today.
sort of, yeah.
So this land was eventually sold and
Oh, yeah.
divided up and
See if we can
Yes.
find something. We got food.
Yeah.
Or is that trespassing?
I think that would be trespassing, but I would love to get in that old barn
Oh, yeah.
and see what's in
I
there.
wonder what it is. I don't know what's in
There's some old things in there.
It might
That's
say
not that
Elsen.
old of a barn, but
No, but there's some
might
old
be
stuff.
machinery.
There's machinery and there's tables in there. I could peek in there,
you have to ask.
but we
I don't want to
can't.
aid and abet a crime on
Yeah, I don't
camera.
want to get arrested out here with father in.
Well, he owned it. It's
So
his
what was over here
ownership.
then? This was
Just
pasture?
a hayfield. Pasture, a hayfield.
And that went back a ways?
Yeah, it was about, it was 2 acres or so of hayfield here. Yeah.
Total
So it wasn't a
property was-
huge farm.
The
Yeah,
total,
how much?
it wasn't, it was 40 acres. 40
40
acres. Which went mostly back in this direction. We had a sugar camp. We had sugar maples back in there, and they made maple sugar.
Maple syrup. Wow.
But in terms of being a field, it wasn't that
Oh,
much
no, no,
acreage.
just a couple of acres of field. The rest was
wood.
scrub woods like this. Yeah.
So
How
for candy,
fun.
you had that maple syrup candy, that rock candy? Is that what you
I don't know what Mom ever made that. She might have. I don't remember that.
It usually forms on the bottom of all your
oh, yeah,
jars.
that
yeah,
stuff,
that
yeah.
maple syrup
Uh-huh.
candy.
Now what's Algonquin, Dad?
That's an old nightclub, so to speak, roadhouse. Up here, just another mile, on the river's edge. And
Is it still there?
it was kind of a naughty place. You know, in those days.
a naughty place.
Not maybe so. Maybe a certain amount of that.
No wonder Papa wants to see that.
We can go by up there.
Papa wanted to see it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, okay.
We'll drive by on the way up.
Yeah.
For the men working on the river, working
Oh,
on
of course,
lumberjack.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Entertainment.
Well,
Wonderful.
thank you,
Yeah,
Father.
yeah,
Vince.
this is great.
You gave a great.
You're a great storyteller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
You should have been here with my brother Al, whom we all love so much.
Yeah.
Because he'd juice this up with certain other
Would there
stories.
be other embellishments?
Maybe those are better left for the
Because
imagination.
he was the older one, and Pop
Oh,
Willett would
yeah.
entrust to him as he's the big boy.
Oh.
He could tell him some of the men's stories,
Yeah.
you know.
Sure.
We were all the little kids, and we had to be protected from all that.
Sure.
How cool.